Hands Health Society presents Dental Webinar Series. We have planned a series dental webinars to keep you abreast of current practice. This series on prosthodontics will be via Zoom, Facebook Live. Presenters are drawn from dental schools in the USA, private practitioners from around the world. To register for future webinars, visit www.hhands.org/dental-training. For future inquiries, contact Facilitator.
Derick, he's going to give us a little background of what he does, but I have a little story to share. I worked a little bit as a dentist, and by the time I saw one of my tax bill at the end of the year, I said, what did I do wrong? Making all the money, and I'm like, oh yeah, every day. But when I saw my tax bracket, I'm like, should I be earning less to just stay? I shouldn't be working this hard. And and that's what happened to me. And I'm like, okay, I need to learn. There's so much to learn about how these things work.
Well, thank you. So what I do, Yuvo, is I work with a lot of dentists, and we help them with tax and financial strategy. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial advisor. I have a team with me that I work with that's their specialty. And essentially, just exactly what you said, Yuvo, is like so many dentists work so hard to make money, right? We spend so much time learning how to run our practice, how to be good doctors, how to make a difference in our patients' lives. But a lot of them don't really do all of that tracking and all of that taking care of, so to speak, with their personal finances. And let's be honest, once you make much money, taxes get really expensive. So you can give, like we have a lot of dentists who are giving pretty close to half to the government. And that's just totally unnecessary. So we come up with a lot of strategies to help people to keep more of the money that you make and to be smarter with it. And the reason my company is called Big Life Financial is, it's not just about money. Obviously, money, the idea for most people is to enhance your life, to make your life better, or at least the thought for a lot of people is more money, a better life. But that's not always true, right? It's ultimately about quality of life first. And so we help people to find that balance, keep more of what you make, be smarter with it, in alignment with living the life that you want to live, or we call that a big life. And so the idea here is to help you create more control, more understanding, more awareness in living in alignment with the life that you want to create for yourself. And money's, one factor. It's a big factor in that for a lot of people. So my background is I was a real estate investor at one point for about 10 years, flipped a lot of houses, realized as I was working with that and mentoring a lot of people that I actually really like working with people more than I like working with houses. And so I made this transition through a friend of mine into the financial services world and helping people. I was kind of doing it in a coaching role and did that for 6 or 7 years, which really allowed me to work with several hundred dentists and several thousand business owners along the way. And because of that, I decided, hey, there were some things that I really want to do to help people make a difference that I can't do in this sort of coaching role. So I ended up getting some credentials and starting off doing my own thing. So the last 6 or 7 years, been doing this full time as my own thing, as opposed to under someone else's umbrella. And over the last, I'd say about 24 months, we've really specialized in dentistry. What I discovered is dentists have the same problems as everybody else, but in many cases, when it comes to money, like a bigger version of that. They make a little bit more money, so they have to be a little bit smarter with it. They have to pay more taxes if they're not paying attention. They have very intense businesses, so a lot of them don't get to pay as much attention. So cash flow problems can be exacerbated. Investment mistakes or investment woes can be bigger. And so we just found that we can do so much more for dentists, that we've really focused in on dentistry and other medical professionals, but dentistry is definitely our biggest one by a mile. So that's what brings me here is you guys are speaking my language.
Yes, yes. I mean, Dr. Demian, just sorry to jump in here. Do you have what would you have to say about taxes? I mean, I know you work in an institution where things are pretty much set, right?
Yeah, so I was in private practice for the first year after I graduated, and I was a what is it? What's the term? I forgot now.
An associate,
Not an associate. It was contractor, something contractor.
an independent contractor.
Independent contractor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't account for any of these taxes, and then I ended up paying a whole bunch, and it came to bite me in the butt. So then, I come to university and everything is taken out already for you, and then it was in an interesting situation at that time because I was full time at a university, but I was an associate outside of a practice, and now I am a associate in a school practice. So trying to find all the tax breaks, I guess, that you can use when you're going from job to a job, also to a single entity like now where I get, I do get 2 W-2s per year from the university and then from faculty practice. At the same time, my bracket went up, so now I'm I do find myself paying more taxes. But my question to you, Derick, would be, what are some pitfalls that you see all the time among dentists that you see right away? Because like any other young dentist, I graduated, I saw money and eyes got this big, and I said, yeah, let's go buy. I want that nice car. I want that nice house. And then I realized it's not steady. It's not a salary that's always even. Like, you have good months, you have bad months.
Sure.
You have months that you pay lab bills, and it gets pretty crazy. Then you're like, well, how do you find that norm, that balance? So what are some pitfalls and recommendations that you can suggest?
Yeah, well, and your experience is not unique, Damien, because most people, when they come out of school, especially in dentistry, a lot of them have a lot of debt. Most people I know aren't making a lot of money during school. So you come out of school and, even $100,000 a year feels like a ton of money when you come out of school. And obviously a lot of dentists make a lot more than that, because you're comparing it to not having anything. And so the first thing you talked about is being a 1099 versus being a W-2. So a 1099 is an independent contractor, and there's pros and cons to that, right? If you work for an office, you're an associate dentist. If you're a 1099 contractor, you should be setting aside money for taxes because you will have to pay your own taxes. So if you're 1099, think of yourself as your own little business working within the bigger business, right? So you've got to pay your own taxes, but you also get to write things off. You can write off your mileage. You can write off your home office if you have to do paperwork or things from home. You can write off anything you use for the business if you have to buy any of your own equipment, supplies, anything that you need to pay for the job. Even if you use like to do post-op calls, like if you do that in the evenings with your patients, then you can write off some of your cell phone bill. If you use the internet at home, you can write some of that off. So you can write a lot of things off, which can balance out the fact that you got to be responsible. Now, if you don't know what your tax bill is going to be like and you're a 1099 dentist, I would say for most people, it's pretty safe to just set aside 25% of what you make for taxes. Now, it probably won't be 25% because the tax brackets, if you don't know this, how they work is they start low. Like you're only in the 10% tax bracket for the first $10,000 you make. And then if you're single or if you're married, it's a little bit different, right? It starts to get double, but you're in the 12% tax bracket for another $40,000. Then you're in the 22% and then 24%, and up to about, as a single person, $165,000, or as a married couple, it's double that, $330,000. You're in 24% or lower, right? So if you set aside 25% along the way, you should have plenty, and then you'll have some left over at the end, right? So that's a really, really simple rule of thumb. And it kind of tricks you into saving a little bit of money, which is pretty important because that's the other thing people forget. I know I did. I came out of college and I hadn't been saving money because I hadn't been making very much while I was in college. And when you start making money, the first thing I would say is, and this applies to everybody, you've got to save money for yourself, right? Like everybody wants to invest in this world of crypto and stocks and all these other things that are out there that are exciting, real estate. The thing is, like, if you don't ever save money, you never get together enough to be able to invest, right? So I kind of jokingly say that savings is the gateway drug to investing, right? You have to learn how to save. And so I would say on top of the 25% that you're setting aside for taxes, you should set aside a minimum of 10% of what you bring home towards savings for yourself. And you should just shave those right off the top, right? So if you shave 35% or in a perfect world, 40%, I know that sounds like a lot, but it's truly what it takes to be prepared. Because your other question is, how do I handle the highs and lows, right? And the way you handle those highs or lows is you've got a little buffer, a little savings account. On the rough months, it might get a little smaller. On the good months, you pay it back. But if you're setting aside 10, 15, 20% every single week, every single month, every single year, in the first year, if you're making $100,000, that's going to be $10,000, right? The buffer that we recommend for people is somewhere between 3 months worth of cost of living, right? Once you buy your house and your car and you kind of know what things cost, take that number, multiply it times 3. That would be your first starting point. So let's say it takes $10,000 a month to live, right? Just for easy math. You should probably have about 30 grand set aside in a liquid savings account or a place you can easily get to that money. Once you have that 30%, you got to ask yourself, how do I feel about this? What is my head telling me? Do I still wake up in the morning like, oh my gosh, what if the new coronavirus variant comes and, we don't work? Am I in panic about that? If you are, then you probably need a little bigger buffer. Try 40, try 50. For most people, the number is somewhere between 3 months of expenses and 6 months worth of expenses. Okay. So once you've got that cushion set aside where you can sleep well at night and you and your spouse don't panic and you feel good, you can look at your kids and be excited about life instead of fearful, then you probably have that nice cushion to help you sort of level out the ups and downs a little bit more. And that's a nice number for a lot of people. After that, I think you continue to save that 10 to 20%, but then you start putting it in other places. That's when you start putting money into growth vehicles. We have a couple of things that we really like to do for people. I'm not going to turn this into a sales pitch, but that's where you can start growing your money. You can start doing other things because you've got the safety taken care of at home. You've got the cushion, you've got the peace of mind. You've learned how to save, and then you go from there. Now, another big thing that I see is when people come out of school, they've got this student loan debt, right? And everybody wants to get that paid off, and I totally get it. So here's something to consider. When you make money and you have extra dollars, right? You've paid your bills and you've got some extra. You want to ask yourself, what's the best use of this dollar? In most cases, paying off student loans is not the best use of your dollar because most of those loans are pretty low interest. Now, if you've got a 29% credit card, it's going to be hard to put your dollar somewhere else and make 29% on that consistently, right? But if you've got student loans at 3, 4, 5%, chances are it doesn't make sense to pay those off. If you can go somewhere else and earn 6, 7%, why pay off 4% debt, right? The other big thing there is even if it was a break even, let's say your debt's the same as you can earn, if you can earn somewhere else where you can have access to that cash, if heaven forbid things go awry, especially once you own your own practice, right? The game gets bigger, the costs get a little higher. Having that cash in a place where you can get to it could be really important. And when you pay extra towards student loan debt, what happens is you can't get that money back. It's the same thing with trying to pay your house off fast. And we saw this a lot with people in the 2008 crash, right? I know that's like ancient history for a lot of people, but these things happen. And basically, if you're paying all your extra towards your equity, you can't get your money back out of your house. And most people, if they use all their savings and they're aggressively trying to pay their house off in 10 or 15 years, they have smaller savings. And then we hit something, that's a bump. You have a problem in your business, or there's a health thing, or there's a pandemic, or there's whatever. If you need to get to that money, you can't. And now you might even lose your house, right? And that happened to a lot of people because they didn't have the liquidity. It was all tied up in equity. They couldn't make their payments. So they went to the bank and said, hey, for the last 5 years, we've been paying a lot of extra. Can we get some of that back? And the bank said, well, you don't really have a good income right now. We're not going to give you a loan. So we'll just foreclose on your house, right? So there are better ways. We teach kind of a personal banking system to help people to save up money in a much higher interest environment. What happens is you can build that interest up. And then when you can write the whole check for your house, if you want to do it all at once, that's great. But that way, along the way, if you hit some speed bumps, you've got a way you can say, you know what, I'm not going to pay extra toward that. I've got some cash I can get to get through for this 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of a tough time. And then I can go back and continue trying to build up more money to pay for my house. The funny thing is, once you can write a check and pay off your house, a lot of people don't want to. They're like, oh, I'm earning more over here than I would save by paying this off. So let me just keep doing that and know that if any time I want to, I can just write the check and the house is paid off. Now they've got the peace of mind of having the house paid off, but they didn't give up all the opportunity cost of growing their money elsewhere, right? So I kind of say this to give you some things to think about. The one thing I can't account for in there is there's something I call it ROE, like everybody talks about ROI, right? Return on investment. This is return on emotion. Because when we do the math, paying your house off early or paying your student loans off early almost never makes sense financially. It's not the smartest thing you can do, but there is an emotional return. And this is the thing that people don't talk about. Like if you live your life off a spreadsheet, it's not very much fun, right? You live off the cheapest food and don't ever do anything fun. And sure, you make a lot of money and save a lot of money, but life is kind of crappy. So when we take and factor in the return on emotion, we say, hey, I want a fun life. I want a big life. I want to have excitement in my life and a reason to get out of bed every day. I want to have my house paid off because that makes me feel safe. Okay, those things are all considerations. It doesn't mean you should do one or the other, but it's something to think about because it's financially, it's not the smartest thing to do or the most optimal thing. But if that's what makes your heart beat a little bit better and you're a little nicer to your patients every day, then maybe that's the way to go. So there are a lot of factors when we talk about finances, but hopefully that answers a couple of the questions you were asking there, because I do think a lot of young dentists go through exactly what you did with all the surprises and sort of the lack of preparation that you get in dental school, right? You learn to be a great dentist. You don't necessarily learn how to be a great person in handling your finances or a great business owner.
Okay, that was very helpful.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's you're getting some free advice here today, but I know we're going to bring Derick back for a full session. But this is just like a good introduction in terms of what you need to do with your money and just to plan for it. When you mentioned student loans, I think before you graduate, I'm going to reach out to all the final year students in the University of Michigan over the next week and get them to come here so that we can talk about, before you go out. And our residents who are in their final year, we have like hundreds of them. We're going to try to do an outreach before the 18th. So is it the 18th you're coming back? I
believe so. Yeah. Okay, yes. Yeah.
And we can talk about before you go out there. I mean, you just mentioned all the things that we began to do. The nice car. I went to, I hope my friend is not listening. This guy just started working and I went to visit with him and I saw he was driving like a Tesla, from day one. He's like, ooh, he's like, okay. I said, it was fun to see, it depends on how you manage all those things, but dreams you can delay. Sometimes you can delay some gratification and get yourself on a good balance, so that, because students loans are there, you have you have all the, your new business is there. You took a loan for that, and you took a loan and you bought a house. So, so you're doing three things at the same time: the student loan, you bought a car, you bought a house, and you took a loan for your business, and you have all these debts. And at some point, you need a financial advisor. Somebody needs to advise you how to spend your money. You need that help, because most of us we're not born with that acumen. So
Sure.
it's always somebody else has been trained and knows exactly what to do, and save yourself some headaches. I mean, there are several stories I've heard of folks who are bankrupt, make a lot of money, but they cannot manage it. They can't pay their workers. I mean, you're making money every day, but what they borrowed is too much. They cannot even pay those who are working for them. So it's like, how did I get into all this problem? But thank you, Dr. Derick. This is a good opener. Guys, if you have any questions, does anybody have any question here? We're going to be back with a full session. I just want to give a little tidbit on how to manage your money, how to plan for your future success. Going to school and learning all those skills is not enough. You need to, money matters. And thankfully we have experts. This is what they do for a living, so they take care of. We can work, and somebody else is going to take care of that business. So if we're looking forward to, I'm going to spread information across. But thank you so much. I want to thank your associate Heather for bringing the connection. And he was saying, there's something Van Ness has to say that you will benefit from. I said, well, I want to listen. I know that I'm going to get my wife to listen too.
I think that's wise. It's sometimes hard to talk.
Because the spending of money is not just you make it, and some other people.
Usually the boss at home is the one that really
they need to listen. So bring your spouses then. This is important. This is a family discussion, because wanting to buy that car, you're trying to explain. They need to be. Everybody needs to understand and be on the same page. Thank you so much, Derick. It's really a great honor having you here today.
Really appreciate you having me. I'm excited about next week. We're going to dive deep into some tax strategies. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth. So it'll be a lot of fun. And if you can have your spouse on, little secret here, like when you don't share money with your spouse and they don't know what's going on, it creates some friction. So, it's really a good idea for you to be on the same page. I know it's a little vulnerable and it's not always easy, but long-term, it's so much better, because when everything's going good, you're fine. But when things go bad and you didn't keep them in the loop, it can be a little messy. So anybody who can bring their spouse would be great.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. And look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. So